The night of my sister Elena's graduation should have been a joyous occasion, a night of celebration, family, and pride. But for me, it became the night I finally understood my place in our family. I sat in the banquet hall, surrounded by relatives, friends, and colleagues of my parents. The room was filled with laughter and clinking glasses as everyone toasted to Elena's success. She had graduated at the top of her class, landed a prestigious job, and had a bright future ahead of her. And she deserved it. She had worked hard. But as I sat there, I already knew what was coming. I had spent my entire life in Elena's shadow, constantly compared, constantly found lacking. It had always been clear that my parents adored her more than me. Still, I never expected them to humiliate me in front of everyone. When my parents took the microphone to give a speech in her honor, I listened, trying to brace myself. They spoke about her intelligence, her discipline, her incredible work ethic. I wasn't surprised. Elena had always been the golden child. Then came the part that changed everything. My father chuckled, looking out at the audience. "You know," he said, "after having Elena, we probably should have stopped having kids. We already had perfection. What was the point of a second one?" Laughter rippled through the room. My mother, grinning, added, "Second-borns are usually the troublemakers, aren't they? If it had just been Elena, we could have focused all our attention on her instead of, well, you know." She waved a hand vaguely in my direction. The room roared with laughter. My relatives chuckled, my parents smirked, and Elena, sweet, perfect Elena, sat there smiling as if nothing was wrong. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I scanned the crowd, searching for anyone who would look at me with sympathy, who would recognize how cruel those words were. But all I saw were laughing faces, and in that moment I realized something. This wasn't a joke. This was how they truly saw me. I sat frozen, my hands clenched in my lap. I had always known my parents favored Elena, but I had convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, I was overreacting. But there was no misunderstanding this. The rest of the night was a blur. I barely tasted my food. I barely heard the conversations around me. All I could hear was my father's voice in my head. "We probably should have stopped having kids." Then, as if to drive the point home, they presented Elena with a brand new car. I watched, as she gasped, as she threw her arms around them, as the crowd applauded. And me? I wasn't even acknowledged. That night, something inside me snapped. I had spent years trying to be good enough for them, trying to be smarter, better, more like Elena, trying to make them proud. But now I understood the truth. They would never be proud of me. So why was I still trying? After the party, I confronted my parents. "That speech," I said, my voice shaking. "Do you even realize how cruel that was?" My mother scoffed. "Oh, don't be dramatic. It was just a joke." "A joke?" I repeated, stunned. "You stood in front of everyone and said you regret having me. That's not a joke." My father shrugged. "You're taking it too seriously. Stop being so sensitive." I stared at them, waiting for some flicker of guilt, some sign that they understood how much they had hurt me. But there was nothing. Instead, my father said something that broke me completely. "I don't know why you're acting like this. You've never given us anything to be proud of." And just like that, I was done. I walked away that night, determined to leave not just the party, but my entire past behind me. I focused on my studies. I worked hard. I applied for every scholarship I could find. And 2 years later, I did what my parents had never expected. I got into my dream college, on a full scholarship. When I told them, they barely reacted. My mother just sighed. "Well, it's a good thing you got a scholarship. We didn't save for you." I packed my things and left for college, and I never looked back. For 3 years, I built a new life. I studied. I worked part-time at a diner. I made friends who saw me for who I really was, not who I wasn't, and for the first time, I was happy. Then, out of nowhere, an email from my parents appeared in my inbox. Call us. It's important. For a long time, I just stared at it. They had stopped reaching out long ago. What could they possibly want? Curiosity, and maybe some lingering sense of obligation, won out. I called. Elena, my mother, said the moment she picked up. It's Elena. She was in trouble, the golden child. The perfect daughter. She had lost everything. Her job, her savings. She was addicted to heroin. I sat there, stunned. Then my father spoke. You didn't introduce her to drugs, did you? I nearly laughed. Are you serious? Instead of focusing on helping Elena, they were more concerned about how it would look to other people. She needs help, I said. Real help. A rehab center. My father's voice turned sharp. Absolutely not. That would ruin our reputation. They wanted me to come home. They wanted me to help them hide Elena's addiction. I felt a surge of anger so strong I could barely speak. For years I had been nothing to them. Now suddenly I was useful? I didn't answer them right away. Instead, I did something I should have done from the beginning. I called Elena. Her voice was quiet, weak. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wanted to tell you before things got this bad. She had spent her entire life trying to be perfect, trying to live up to impossible expectations. And when it became too much, she had turned to drugs. For the first time, I realized something. We were both victims. I had spent my whole life feeling like I wasn't enough. She had spent hers feeling like she had to be, and now I had to make a choice. Should I walk away, leaving my parents to deal with the golden child they had created? Or should I try just this once to save my sister, even if it meant facing the family I had fought so hard to leave behind? I didn't know the answer yet. But for the first time in years, I wanted to talk to Elena. Not as my competition. Not as the perfect child. But as my sister, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.